Hi guys, today our lesson is going to be over rounding decimals. Now rounding decimals, we have a couple different ways that we can do it, but I'm actually going to cross off the first part of our notes right here where it says rounding using a number line. This could be a good way to do it, but sometimes it's kind of hard if you don't have a number line in front of you with the numbers already written out. So we're just going to skip that one for now. Maybe we'll hit it later. Today we're going to just round using place value. So remember, when you round numbers, you're making them just a little bit easier to work with. Um, and so it's something that can be useful, especially whenever you're trying to estimate answers, um, which is a good tool to have. So let's go ahead and work on rounding using place value. Now we have a lot of steps for this, so make sure you're paying very close attention to these steps. And if any of them don't make sense, make sure you just kind of put a star or anything next to them. Feel free to rewind it, maybe listen a second time. That sometimes can help. So step one is when we're rounding using place value, step one is to underline or box the digit in the place value that we're going to be rounding to. So all of your rounding problems are going to say round this number to the nearest, and then it's going to have a place value. Box that place value. Okay? It's going to be step one. To box the place value it's telling you to round to. Step two. So once we have that the box digit or underline, the next thing we're going to do is look at the digit to the right. This digit's going to kind of tell us what exactly we're going to do. If we're going to round up or if we're just going to stay the same. So we do have a little way to help us know if we're going to round up or stay the same. We have a little saying, so this would be something useful for you to have memorized. It's kind of a little jingle. It rhymes a little bit. This saying is, if the number is 4 or less, let it rest. If the number is 5 or more, let it soar. So again, real quick, if the number is 4 or less, let it rest. If the number is 5 or more, let it soar. So let's real quick just talk about what does it mean to let it rest? If you let something rest, you're just leaving it alone. You're not changing it. So when we say let it rest, when we're letting a number rest because the number we're looking at is 4 or less, we leave the digit alone. We don't change it. If the number that we're looking at is 5 or more, we let it soar. Well, when we let something soar, we're going to let it go up. So that's what we're going to do whenever we are going to let the number soar. We're going to add 1 to the digit. Okay. That's step 2. We look at the digit to the right of the underline or box digit. Let me real quick make sure I know the right is this direction. So we're going to look at that way of the underlined or box digit. If the number's 4 or less, let it rest. If the number's 5 or more, we're going to let it soar, which means to add 1 to the digit. Now, digits to the left, this is step 3, of the underline or box number. The left is over here. So the digits that are on this side of our boxed or underlined number, they stay the same unless we have to round the digit up to 10. Then this is where there's some carrying involved, and we'll work an example like this out here in a second. So a lot of steps. You're going to have to get familiarized with these steps in order to round. So make sure I would keep these close by when you're working on your own problems today. Very useful to just kind of go step 1, do that, step 2, do that, and step 3, do that. All right, so let's go ahead and do some practice. And I'm going to use the steps just like we went over. Example 1, we have 30 and 52 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to underline the digit I want to go to, just to make sure I'm paying close attention. So what's step 1? Step 1 is to box the place value I'm rounding to. I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to find the tenths place value. Where's the tenths place value? It's right behind the decimal. We should have our place values memorized by now. I'm going to box that number. What does step 2 say? Look at the digit to the right. And then we say our little jingle. If the number's 4 or less, we let it rest. Is the number we're drawing an arrow to, is it 5 or more? Do we need to let it soar? Well, 2 is 4 or less. So we're going to let it rest, which means we leave the digit that is boxed alone. Okay? And then step 3 says digits to the left, all the digits over here, we're going to just leave the same. We're not going to change them. So I'm going to write 30. This number's not going to change. Point. And then the number I box, I'm going to let it rest. And then I don't write anything after the number I box when I'm writing my rounded answer. So 30 and 52 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth is rounded to 30 and 5 tenths. All right, let's try the next one. 19 and 438 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth. So again, I'm going to box or underline the place value I'm rounding to. What place value am I rounding to? I'm rounding to the hundredths. So I'm going to box that. Remember, the hundredths is after the tenths, and the tenths is after the decimal. Okay, what's step 2 say? Step 2 says look to the right of my boxed number. I look at that number, and then I say my little jingle. If this number is 4 or less, let it rest. If the number I'm pointing the arrow to is 5 or more, let it soar. So is 8 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more. So we're going to raise the score to our boxed number. Now remember, step 3 says digits to the left are just going to stay the same. So the digits that are going to be over here in front of my box number to the left are going to stay the same. So I'm not even going to change those. I only have to change those whenever I have to round to a 10. And now remember my box number is going to raise the score. So I'm going to add 1 to 3. And that is my answer. 19 and 438 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth is 19 and 44 hundredths. Remember, I don't have to write anything after the place value I'm rounding to either. Okay, last one. And this is where we're going to see where we have to round to a 10. So let's see how we'll do that. All right, 5 and 96 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. So I box that place value, the tenths start after the decimal. I draw an arrow to the right. Now I say my little jingle. I look at the number that I'm pointing the arrow to and I say, is this number 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more, so I'm going to raise the score. Well, when I raise the score, the 9 turns into what? It turns into 10. So I kind of got to think about when you have to add and you have to carry. We're going to carry that 10. We're going to carry it over here. Sorry, that wasn't drawn too well. We're going to carry it and add it to our place value to the left. So we're going to have 1 plus 5. We're going to get 6. And the 9, that 10, the 1 carried, and the 0 is going to stay right here. So really we get 6 and 0 tenths, or just 6. It doesn't matter. They're the same. And then we don't have to write anything after our box number, our box place value rounded to. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. Just one real quick one. Let's do 14 and 563 rounded to the nearest, let's do tenths, or the nearest tenth. Okay, I'm just doing one extra practice one with you because I know these can be a little hard, so maybe we'll just run this one little practice one. Okay, we're going to follow the same steps. I'm going to read the problem. 14 and 563 thousandths rounded to the nearest tenth. So we want to go to the tenth. So you have to find your tenths. Where's my tenths? Oh, they're right here. The tenths is always right after the decimal. I'm going to draw an arrow to the right. I'm going to look at that number I drew the arrow to tell me if I need to round up or stay the same. Is 6 4 or less or 5 or more? It's 5 or more. So what are we going to do? We're going to raise the score. All right. So when you raise the score, the 5 is going to I'm going to add 1 to the 5. It's going to turn into 6. And then I'm going to write everything before the box number the same. I'm going to write everything I'm not going to write anything after the box place value. So 14 stays the same, still write my decimal. Then I just bump up the 5 to a 6, and then I don't write anything after the place value that I'm rounding to. So I don't have to write anything after this because I rounded to the tenths. So that's my answer. All right, make sure you keep working on the Nearpod. And if you have any questions, please let me know.